step one in leading and building a ministry team. It begins with realizing that fame is fleeting, that we're not as big a deal as we think we are. And that verse right there, verse 16, or verse 16, there was no end of all the people, all of whom he led, yet those who came later would not rejoice in them. That is what every youth worker in the church needs to hear. That it's not dependent upon me. That the ministry's been going on before I got there, and it's going to go on after I leave. There's a game we play with our students to kind of highlight this fact that fame is fleeting. And I would imagine that y'all will do a little bit better than they will. They only got one of these names right. But does anybody know who Bobby Jones is? We got a handful of folks. Bobby Jones, greatest golfer of his time. Anybody know who Bill Russell is? Open a few more hands. Our students didn't know who either of those guys were. Didn't know. Bart Starr, quarterback for
Packers.
Green Bay Packers. And Alabama favorite really said, get back. So, again, our students didn't know that. What about Jimmy Stewart? We have a little movie that we like to watch around Christmas time. And then, what about, this was Christy Brinkley. Anybody? Yeah. Guys, girls, didn't know who that was. Now, this one should come back to those my age. Macaulay Culkin. Didn't know who that was. Mark Paul Gosselaar. Say my mom. Yeah, there we go. So, I said the only one, I think I'll say the only one that they knew, I can't remember who it was now, right? But they only knew one. But highlighting that fact that these incredibly famous people of their eras have been replaced by Tiger Woods, LeBron James, Drew Brees, Brad Pitt, Heidi Klum, and the great Zac Efron and Miley Cyrus. Those that have fame in the biggest stage, in the biggest arena, it's there for a moment, but it's fleeting. And a lot of times we come into our ministries and we think, I'm the reason that this is going to be successful. I'm the reason that this is going to change. And so for the first step, we've got to see fame's fleeting. We're not that big of a deal. And it highlights the priority of building a sustainable ministry. Because the ministry has to go beyond us. Because two things are going to happen. Either we're going to die in that job, as Ecclesiastes reminds us again and again, we're going to die. It's happening. Or we're going to be taking a job somewhere else. So is this ministry sustainable? As I'll mention later, how are we setting the table for those that are coming behind us? Are they going to be able to step in and be used by God to reach more students than us? And deep down, do we really want them to reach more students? Or would it bother us if they were better and more effective than us? A little bit of what this has looked like for us. One of the things that we've created what we call the Youth House Way. It's part policies and procedures, but it's also kind of a running history of what we've done. Because one of the things when I got there, other than word of mouth, we didn't know what trips, what Bible studies, what things that we had done over the course of the years. And so now we've got a running history. Here's trips that we've done. Here's trips that have gone well. Here's trips that haven't gone well. Here's studies that we've used that have and haven't gone well. And one of the things that we do is we plow through the Bible. So it kind of gives us a running list of what books we have studied. So as different people come in and teach, we're able to inform them. So that's something for us that has been very helpful in building a sustainable ministry that will go beyond us. Because as new staff enter, they're able to read, catch up, and know what we're doing. And the other thing for me, when I first got to the church, I was responsible for working with 7th grade guys. That was my focus, and everyone had one particular grade. But the problem that happened is when that individual left, you can imagine a student's response. My guy, my girl is now gone. And so one is trying to build that idea that it's a church. It's not just this individual. And so we still hang out. We hang out with every grade. We'll have small groups that we're responsible for. But we want to make sure that we're reaching across so that the students don't think it's just because one staff member or one volunteer So, and then the other thing that's been staring me in the face, one of the biggest things when Joey asked me to talk about is that this is something that historically we haven't done that great of a job at. And so it's me saying, here's what we haven't done well, and we're about to do something that we haven't done before. And it's kind of starting this spring, and it's with you shepherds. I'll get there in a little bit. And Brian in that book highlights that very well. Got to have a conversation with him last spring. It was just, there's certain times you can talk to individuals and the lights go on, and I saw where we were lacking. So our goal should be for that sustainable leadership, for someone to be able to step in, and when we leave, step in and be able to go on with what's going on. So step 2, don't be a fool. Lead with a teachable spirit. Verse 13 says it quite clear. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. We'd like to think that we have it all figured out. This is our generation, and it's the generation of students that we pour our lives into. We want to sit up and say, I have all the answers. I know it all. You don't need to tell me anything else. But what we need to know is that it's better to lead with a teachable spirit than to be too proud to let anybody teach us anything. And one of the ways in which we can do this is look at the circles that God has placed around us and identify people that God can use to teach us, to grow us, and particularly in regards to student ministry. Where do we need to look for these important earthly relationships that God has given to grow us? The first relationship that we lead with a teachable spirit, it begins on the home front. It begins with our spouse. This is the one who should know us better than anybody. We need to make sure that they're on board with what we're doing, that they've bought in. It doesn't mean that they're leading 5 small groups during the week and eating 19 meals with students throughout the course of the week, but this is something that they are ready and want to be a part of, because right there, that ministry team has to be tight. And if it's not, the ministry is not going to succeed. And just wanted to mention that. We could springboard and talk about that for a long time. That's the first relationship that we've got to make sure is right. The second relationship to lead with a teachable spirit is with our senior minister. It's with an executive minister or others on staff, depending on the size of the church that God's placed us in. I've been blessed. With a great staff around us. I've been blessed with a great relationship with a senior minister, someone that I can talk freely to. Easy to have that relationship because he leads with a teachable spirit. And so it's been that for me, and I lead with that same teachable spirit. And I don't know the situations or the individuals God's placed to work around you, but pray that we'll lead with a teachable spirit. For me, this has been huge. And I said, I've been there 7 years. In 7 years, we're on our 4th executive minister. One guy had been there for a long time, was retiring. We had an individual there for 5 years. Someone was an interim. And it's tough when you have a lot of moving parts to always lead with a teachable spirit, because when you've been somewhere for a while, it's kind of like, I've been there. I know how this works. And so for me, that's been one of the things that God really had to work upon my heart. Help me to lead with that teachable spirit, to be reminded that I still don't know everything, even though I will act like I do, because we don't want to be, we all hate that guy that stands up and just says, I know it all. Don't teach me anything. But so often we're prone to be that same guy or girl. The third relationship to lead with a teachable spirit is our youth committee or ministry team. And as it pertains to student ministry, this is the vehicle that drives the train. This is huge. Real quick, just curious how everyone's structures are different. Our youth committee is made up of 5 elders. It's elders only. I know there's others where it will be elders and maybe deacons, or maybe elders and church members, or maybe church members only. Anybody else have committees that are elders only? Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
We've got a youth committee made up of 5 men that we meet with, every 6 weeks or so, and we talk through ministry, what we want it to look like. In a sense, that's kind of where the decisions, for the most part, get made or formulated. And then, do y'all have youth ministry team or youth committee where it's a combination of elders and church members? something that's familiar to you. I've been a committee or a team. When you get something like this in place, it is life in ministry, and it is encouragement like I haven't experienced before. And it's why I didn't grow up in the PCA church, but I love the PCA structure. Sometimes we can move incredibly slow on things, and decisions can take a long time. But I love the fact that there's so many channels, and that we're not out there on an island. We've got folks that have our back. But as I said, our committee is comprised of 5 elders. These elders rotate they serve every 2 to 4 years, but it's a rotating basis every year. And as I said, this setup's been outstanding for us. When I first started, it was a mixture of 5 elders, and then we had church members, and then when you added the youth staff, and then there'd be about 20 of us in one room trying to accomplish things over 1 hour. There wasn't much that got accomplished. And I wish I could say it was my wisdom and my insight, but after having been there for 6 months, our senior minister, our session, moved to a complete committee structure where it was just elders only. And that's been one of the greatest things, because in that smaller environment, greater conversation takes place, and the decisions are able to happen. So that would be an encouragement, is that, in a sense, that core team or committee, is make sure that number doesn't get too big, because it can be hard to get things done. So, the youth committee or ministry team, here are the reasons why it's vital. This is where we get to talk philosophy of ministry. What it looks like fleshed out. Where decisions are made. For us, it's a great encouragement. We had a committee meeting a few weeks ago, and to actually hear an elder come in and say, he says, you've got this picture of the youth group all-star. This individual who's at every meeting, every Bible study, and they do everything. And then you have the one that doesn't want to be at anything. The only reason they're there is if their parents forced them to be there. But I can attest, because I've had a brother who didn't want to be at anything. He said, we even had youth events at our house, and he wouldn't show up. And later on, you see this man in his 40s, God grabbed his heart. And it's just that reminder that God is always at work, and to hear that from parents that are our elders is huge, because it can be so easy for us to lose sight. And the other reason that this can be beautiful is the multitude of counselors. Because it's these men, and if you have women that are sitting on a team, the life experience that is in that room is huge. And then as you also think about the years that these men and women have loved Jesus, and as we come together, they're there. We're able to bounce ideas off of them. They're able to talk honestly to us. And for us, we recently had a girl who was struggling with cutting. And one of the first things that I did was call a particular elder, and we talked through it. He gives, hey, here's the direction that you need to go. And then at the same time, the meeting was tough. The meeting went well. You can see what the Holy Spirit does. In the event, to say her parents get mad, I can't believe you would talk to my daughter about that without me there. We've got the elder that already knows that has happened and that has taken place, so that if you do have that irate parent, you have that level of protection. And again, it goes back to that beautiful thing that you're not on an island by yourself. The beautiful part of that Presbyterian structure. The other thing is, this is where we get refreshed. I've always, Proverbs 3, 5 through 6 is a verse that I think most of us know by heart. When I was in high school, verses 7 and 8 were the ones that just hit home. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths. This is what I love. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. I love working in the church. Absolutely love it. I get up every day, and I'm so grateful that I get to do what I do. And I would imagine there's some of you that is probably the same thing. But there are days when you have been kicked every which way. And you can't imagine getting up and doing it the next day. It's like, Lord, I want to pray. I want to rest. I want that healing, and I want that refreshment that goes down Because this is where, over time, as I said, those conversations you can have on a deeper level. But it's even an elder calling in and checking in. It's taking you out to lunch. And it's that, as I said before, those reminders. What you're doing matters. The fact that these guys want to plug in the iPod, roll down the windows, and play the fart out. That has meaning. That has purpose. These guys, and because so often today, it's just, you got to have all Bible study all the time. I was like, no, those relationships are important. It's those two coming together. And so to have men that are years ahead of us reminding of that is huge. And if we can lead with a teachable spirit in those relationships, coming to these men, whether it's our session, whether it's our executive minister, whether it's a senior minister, etc. What can you teach me? How can I grow? Rather than coming to them to get it all figured out. Those relationships are far more enjoyable. So for us, we need to ask God for a teachable heart. Because without it, we'll never be ready to be led or to lead or be useful in the kingdom of God. The third thing that we're going to talk about at the end, one of the things I'd like to do is I'd like to hear things that are going on in your churches in regards to how you're using volunteers, or as I'll kind of argue here, I like the term shepherd a little bit more than volunteer. But the third thing is 2 is better than 1, working in partnership. You see that in verses 7 through 12, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil, for if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm. But how can 1 keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against 1 who is alone, 2 will withstand him, and that threefold cord is not quickly broken. We need each other. It's one of those words that we don't like to hear. It's a lot like when you hear the word in college, group project. Dang, I hate group project. And there's something that rubs against us that I need somebody else. We need each other. Because the reason we hate those group projects, it's usually because we overvalue our gifts in production while we undervalue somebody else's gifts in production. That's important because in most of our relationships, we are coming to the table thinking that we bring more than somebody else. That is usually how we approach relationships. And it presents a problem because if we live and we work like we're the only one who can do the job, we're on the fastest route to student ministry nightmare. And it's why so many may be miserable right now, or soon will be, because it's been this solo journey. And God never intended for this to be a solo journey. And that's the great thing. There's a better way to live and a better way to work. It's better to share our life than to make it our own. And there's many relationships God places around us, and God has created us for togetherness. I love it. Someone said together is better than loneliness. Connection is better than competition. Because Christian life is easy to grow cold, just as it's talking about here, to keep each other warm. And we can grow cold when we've been wronged by somebody, when we've had the insult of somebody. We may not feel a part of this body of believers like we did from either the church we were working at before or the church that we were a member at before. And so, Lord, I don't trust them like I did this previous congregation. So, if we walk this path of loneliness or this path of competition, then what happens is we can become numb to the work of God, since we're not sharing it with anyone. And essentially, we freeze to death. I live in the South, which I love, because that means you have winter for all of like 4 days. And it is a glorious and wonderful thing. So I say that because I don't know what cold really is. My cousins live up in Minnesota. Last week it was 35 below. That is cold. That is freezing. And that's kind of we're going to go out and say, hey, I'm the Maverick. I'm going to do this all by myself. I don't need anybody else. We're that idiot in Minneapolis who's out there in their bathing suit. You're just going to get colder and colder and colder and colder. And so we need the warmth the church. Where we have 6 folks that are just on the youth staff, and we have one that's dedicated just to the administrative part of it. And there's a level at which you need to step back, and sometimes we do need to hire more folks to do this. And that's where, again, having that ministry team, maybe the relationship with your senior minister, executive minister, we can come in and be honest and say, hey, we need to look at adding this position sometime in the future because it's going to make ministry better. But as I said, on my end, the area that I saw that we weren't doing a very good job of was getting the rest of the church involved in the life of student ministry. Jackson, Mississippi, I grew up in Texas. Jackson's a little different from where I grew up. One of the things that typically happens is most of our students either go to Ole Miss or go to Mississippi State. So their connections to Jackson stay pretty close. You're 2.5 hours to Oxford, you're 2 hours to Mississippi State, and then a lot of times they come back to Jackson afterwards. So there's this really unique thing where you have a lot of folks that have grown up in Jackson, gone to school in Mississippi, and have come back to Jackson. And so for me, it underscored even more how important it would be to get the rest of the body involved in student ministry, because you have individuals that are probably going to be coming back and are going to be in the same church one day. And what it does, it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, that sustainable ministry, something that goes beyond us. So as we have a youth staff member get married or a youth staff member get pregnant, or it's just time for to move on to another job, it's not about losing the individual, because you'll have what I call youth shepherds. And we've got, in our church, they've broken up our elders and deacons into flocks. They're responsible, we call them shepherds, for a particular group of individuals. And when last week, Twin Lakes Fellowship is something that occurs in Jackson, and got the opportunity to visit with Brian Coffey, and that's where it really opened my eyes. He said, because the idea of volunteer doesn't really imply everything that a youth volunteer is going to do. And he says when you bring that terminology of shepherd, it brings it in a lot more to that personal relationship, that you're taking an interest in the lives of these young men and young women, because you want to come alongside them as God grows them. And so, for us, this is what we're going to be doing this spring. We're going to be looking to begin the first part of this youth shepherd system, where our hope is that we break up our small groups by guys and girls, and we break it up by grades to get even smaller. And again, context plays into this so much. But as we break up those groups, we're looking to get 2 to 3 volunteers per grade. And one of the things that we've learned is you want to make the commitment meaningful, but at the same time, as minimum as possible. Sometimes it's too advantageous to think, all right, if you want to volunteer, I need you in every discipleship group during the course of the year. You only get 2 weeks off. I need you at every retreat, and then I need to make sure that you're going to at least 4 or 5 sporting events a week. And that's not sustainable. That's not possible. And so one of the things for us, we said, we feel like if you can be at 2 discipleship groups, that would be our junior high meets on Wednesday night, our senior high meets Sunday morning. If you can commit to 2 a month, we still feel like you can have a meaningful impact on the lives of these young men and women. And then from there, if you would like to be there every week, if you would like to go to some of their athletic or fine arts events, or if you'd like to take part in the retreat, yes, we would love for you to do that. We would love for those relationships to blossom. The big thing is we would love to see them taking guys and girls to go grab breakfast, taking guys and girls, like whether you got, short trips to go see a ball game or things of that nature, so that they see, oh, here's a picture of what it looks like to be a Christian when I'm in my 20s, when I'm in my 30s, when I'm in my 50s. And they see that model of folks pouring back into them. And then again, when they're coming back over the college break, the likelihood of them seeing a church member that they knew during junior high and high school is far more likely than seeing a youth staff member over the Christmas break. And then especially if they're coming back in their 20s or 30s, the likelihood that they're going to have a connection to another member in the church is greater than will a youth staff member. That's why that first point is so important, that we're not that big of a deal, and that we've got to make sure that we're setting the table so that the next guy, the next girl who comes into our position is able to do even better than us in reaching and equipping that next generation. But a few things, going back to access to the youth shepherd system, you might find these things helpful, might not. What we're doing this spring is we're going to have an informational meeting. We're going to say, here's what we're looking to do. Here's our vision. We would like for you to be a part of it. And we're not just opening this up to the whole church. Because we feel like when you open it up to the whole church, you're inviting a lot of conversations you really don't want to have. It's saying, yes, you are a wonderful Christian. You are a great person. But no, it did not work with you. So, to the best of our ability, we're going to be calling individuals and then sitting out an invitation to them so that there's a level of which we know a little bit more about them. And then from there, they'll come to this informational meeting. We'll have a short application, and they're just, why do you want to work with students? A little bit about their testimony, how long they've been a member of the church, why they love and value the church. And then in there, one of the things we have to make sure you get in there is that consent for the good old background check. So we have to, insurance policies require us to do that, so I've got it out there so that you don't get a headache later on. But then what we'll do, before we even say yes to them, we go back to our committee. And the committee has to say, yes, this man or this woman would be a great youth shepherd. Because again, going back to listen, there's some of these men, they go back to high school and college with some of these guys. Or they know some things and saying, hey, there's some things that we may need to watch out there. And they may say, hey, this is not going to be a good individual. And the great thing is hey, it's not that, hey, Justin said you're not good. The committee has said. And so that's still a tough conversation. But again, it doesn't fall solely on us. It falls on the committee. And so that's kind of the process of which we're going to go by. And then in the summer, we'll have an evening where we get together, we pray, more training. And then in the fall, hopefully, we're hoping to initially start with 8 to 10 folks. If it's more, that'd be great. That's our initial goal. But that's where we know we have to head. But right now, I'm curious. Like I said, this is stuff that we have not done well, and we've got to get better at it. I'm curious to hear what y'all are doing, because to me, some of the best times at RYM is just as we get in conversation. Like I said, go for it.
Question about the committees. How do you keep that from becoming a little kingdom in your church, where it's just a powerhouse, and they use that?
Yeah, that's right. The rotating is what helps us. Is because and sometimes the rotating can be tough when you get a really good committee and you lose some of that mojo and you got to build it back up. But the biggest thing for us has been rotating. And then we have, we have a huge session. We've got probably, I think we have 75-ish elders on our session. So, I know that is abnormal, that is not the norm. And so, but the great thing, like I said, it can be painfully slow getting decisions sometimes. But the great thing is the squeaky wheel doesn't get the grease. So if you've got one family, that says, we just need to do all trips, all fun, not much of the Bible, that voice is going to be drowned out. And then if you have, the extreme homeschool family that says, it's not good for my kids to be around the other youth kids because they're going to corrupt them, then that voice is squashed. So that's one of the built-in benefits. Like I said, slow, very slow at times, that many elders, but rotating. Whether you have, that's not one of the PCA churches in my own town, they've got 5 elders. And so I know that it can be tough if those relationships aren't good on the front.
Just a question. You've got the structure of the elders that rotate and staff for your committee. Where are you getting, you have so many female issues, things like that, do you have any kind of advisory board that sits in with those elders?
We've been on
So
staff.
really speak into that, because there's so many female issues that even though an elder might say, here's the path for a cutting incident, but...
Yeah, what we did, like in that incident, what we did is we talked to, and I talked to the senior minister, and I'll talk to youth committee head, and there's another guy in the youth committee that's just really good with that stuff. And then we've got a minister on staff that has a counseling degree, doctorate, and so we're able to call him and ask him those questions. So that's another thing, is identifying if you've got any of those individuals in your church that you can call. He to kill herself. And so for us, obviously that was very helpful. And so that's helped in that
Well,
regard.
that was just an example you had, but I mean, just as an overall, just having, women being able to speak into what's happening in the life of the ministry, does that happen?
Now you're talking
You
about...
have two sisters. I'm sure they speak into your life.
There's
I know
no doubt. There's no doubt.
I was just saying, I'm thinking on every level. Everything I've heard sounds really like you guys have got a very good point. A very good way of, I guess, keeping your ministry going, the vision that you have it going for the church. But I was just wondering, I just didn't hear any of that. There's a mother on here that can speak from a nurturing point of view. There's this person speaking in. Are they just speaking in through their husbands and that's it, or do they actually kind of come into that conversation? That's all I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of interaction with families, a lot of interaction with mothers, but we don't have, aside from mom's prayer group once a month and our female staff getting with mothers of the group. We don't have a forum where moms come into the.
Our church is just like y'all's. The one I walked into a great situation. The guy who was before me, Blake Smith, y'all know him, he's awesome. And once you describe it, basically what we do. And I just walked into that. So it's awesome. But one thing to speak to what you said, Scott, is one thing, we have the same exact setup, except ours is, we don't have 75 elders to pull from, we have 18, so it doesn't exactly work like that, but we have, our youth committee is one elder, one deacon, one elder and one deacon always, and then they always pull 2 moms onto that committee, and maybe a dad too that's not an officer.
Yeah.
And always, it's really interesting since I've been there, I've noticed they pull moms who have girls in college. Not moms who have girls in high school, but moms who have girls in college. So that they can kind of, because they've already been there, they've already seen that.
Yeah.
And I will say that was, when we start to talk about things that men have no idea about, their wisdom is, you just can't measure. And it's very, very valuable to have. It's kind of the same exact thing. Anyway, it's awesome the way that works out. I think that's really important. And also, I remember sitting in talks like this before. I'm in a church that's just like Justin's now, which is a big church. Some people in here might not have 75 people in their church. You've got 75 elders. Crazy. Like the economy of scale. But this can be done. I didn't always work in a church like that. And this can be done, what he's talking about can be done on a smaller scale and be just as effective too. It's totally, because I sat in this sometime and to hear you talk and to hear these things about, well, there's no way we can ever do that. And just go back completely defeated and be like, well, that's great for those guys who have jobs for that, those people. But for us, that doesn't mean anything. But that was just me and my, ignorance talking. Like, the truth is that you need that you need those elders and those lay people and just people in your church, men and women who are excited about youth ministry and know about what it's like to raise. You need that wisdom. What he says is totally true. But yeah, I think it's really important to have a female perspective. Yeah.
Well, I was just wondering, I just heard that, I was wondering, in that structure, where that was coming in, and what you're saying is that there's kind of a prayer group, meets once a month, there might be a little bit of reference in y'all's system, but that's necessarily not, I guess you have female interns and...
Yeah, we got female staff this whole time.
Right, okay, so, okay. And then, anyway, I was just, how is that good, great? That's what I was trying to...
Yeah, I mean, for us, that's what we're blessed. The female staff gives us, obviously, great eyes and ears into a world.
But not really, no decision making, it's just more eyes and ears. Okay.
Eyes and ears, and then, and obviously the input they have. And then for us, that's huge. I mean, the decisions, sometimes can be frustrating. They fall on the committee. There's
in terms of discipleship. And like on my staff, I have people ranging age from 19 to 60. And it's awesome and beautiful, and it's like a beautiful picture of the church, and 60-year-olds are totally like playing like pre-putt hockey with us and stuff, and it's amazing and it's beautiful. And like I think it's really helpful to our students to think, you know, that this is what the Christian life is, this is what the body of Christ is.
That's huge. You want to, that's the biggest thing that we want our students to see, is that it is the bride, the whole body of Christ, and not to just get stuck in just youth world community. You said y'all go on just with the youth staff, just to bride the staff, and those that paid and unpaid. You go for a year.
Once a year we go on a weekend retreat right at the beginning of our ministry years. In September, we go away to a camp for the weekend, and my boss and I teach different seminars and stuff, but there's also times we let people bring their families, so they bring their kids and stuff, and bring babysitters for them, so that during our meetings they have babysitters provided, and then there's a lot of times for families just to be together too.
And then how many people does that comprise?
I guess on most of the college, probably about 40 people not including like their families, but some
So
stuff.
that'd be like 40 kind of staff. Are you talking about students or
No, 40 volunteers.
volunteers?
Yes.
So we're kind of in a similar stage or else with some of you guys are. We've been kind of recasting our vision for what we're doing with the children's ministry and student ministry. And one thing we kind of run into is just it's kind of been an issue in our church for a while is that we feel as if the congregation kind of at large isn't super invested in what's going on. It's like it's a little bit like, you know, we drop our kids off at the student ministry and that's like they're going to take care of them. You know what I'm saying? So my ear was kind of picked up when you said like y'all are thinking through how to get more buy-in, I guess, from the congregation. I was just wondering if you could talk more about just how you're thinking through that and what you're doing.
I mean, one of the things is that in any context or setting we're in, there's great things about it, there's difficult things about it. And for us, a lot of times the philosophy amongst the church can be, okay, hey, we have a need, let's hire somebody. And that can be a good thing at times, but also we need to be looking at how can we, and that was the thing that was staring us in the face, is how can we direct more of the congregation into the life of the church. And some of the things we felt that it's been is through that personal contacting them, calling them, and maybe, you know, over a lunch, over a breakfast, talking about it, following up with that invitation, and then providing an opportunity where they can get, in a sense, where they feel like they can have some tools for the job. Because one of the things that's come up over and over is they feel like, I'm not equipped. I don't know how to teach a small group. So we feel like when we give that opportunity, say, hey, one, there's not just one way to do it, but here's some ways to go about it. Here's what it looks like. Here's preparation. And one of the things that we do is, you know, is we'll prepare, you know, a small group lesson for them ahead of time that they've got that they can use. It's basic enough to where they can just use that, or if they want to spend more time and build off of it, because that's the time thing. You don't have time to study 5 or 6 hours. But a study, so we're thinking, hey, you can put in 45 minutes an hour, you'll be very familiar with this part of Scripture, ready to dive in.
I'm just writing down a couple of things you guys are saying, and it just keep me honest. I was thinking about this. Oh man. If I could go to my friend, if I go back, we have a full-time female, I don't even know what to call her. She's my coworker. But whatever. She's here. Talk to her later. But we have that position. If I could go back to my old church and change anything, it would be this. I would tell them to never give me a raise and to put that money toward hiring someone, a female, for me to work with. I want you to think about that for a second. That I would do it in a heartbeat. I would take a pay decrease. Because the difference between having someone on your staff who can meet with your girls and can talk to them, I mean, it is so valuable. I can't even my ministry, girls have been before I realized that shortcoming. And just how I go back and I think, you know, even if it's someone from your church, a mom or a younger person that you can just pay part-time, or someone who's a volunteer, to have someone who knows what they're going through. And I just can't, I know I'm just rambling, whatever. It's so important. Listen to these guys who have had it before. I have no idea what it's like to be a high school girl. I didn't understand when I was in high school, and I don't understand them now. I don't know what it's like. They're just on a whole different level. And if you can find a way to afford them, you will be so thankful. Like I said, I would reduce my salary if I had to. And you know who else will be thankful? Your wife will be so thankful. She will be thankful as well.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
This is what I'm kind of curious, because you're at a big church that can pretty much hire. If there's an issue, you can probably hire for it. How many people are kind of 200, 250 and under in size? Just a few. And then is everybody else like 500? No. Or how many people are, smaller than that? 300, 350 and under. Because that's still kind of, you can still hire and stuff. I mean, trying to be really creative in how you develop a team, like what you were saying. Because our church is only about 200 in Colorado. I mean, we're just fired up when someone's slightly interested in doing something. And we'll take anybody. I mean, we'll take a homeless person. They pass the background check. No, but it really is. But I think being really thoughtful about that is huge. And being able to have those conversations, like you're saying, I think it's cool, but it's hard to fill those positions in. And so, as a youth pastor, you have to be really creative